Chocolate Sunday, first one in ages. Actually, that's my other channel. This is supposed to be my serious journalism channel. So, shall I switch or no? Anyway, for survivors or those interested in the micro of toxic families and MK Ultra, psychopaths, narcissism, I have another YouTube channel as well, Angie Disney. And I usually do the more personal stuff on there, but hey. This one is, I'm trying to get back to that wonderful place after surgery where I got such freedom from, you can't, I was very deprogrammed after a vast amount of anaesthetic and surgery. And it's like, I was reminded of like when Van Gogh would have an epileptic seizure. Right after, he would do the most amazing paintings, even though it's not very nice having, you know, but it's similar to that. When I have a meltdown, whether caused by, you know, vast amounts of anaesthetic or whatever, because I'm very sensitive to meds, I go into visionary mode for up to a month, which is fantastic, except for it's usually following trauma, so the credibility ratings aren't great. But anyway, I was in the presence of, this is not for applause or approval, you know, because I realised, partly from watching a video by Nina Valentine talking about thinking she chose her career and then realising with hindsight that actually it was all laid out for her and she was just engineered into it, you know, with various modes, reverse psychology and whatever. And I realised it like that went off in me for days, and still is in it. You know, you get a revelation like a grenade, and it just keeps going off. And I realised that very deep programming for me is to always please others. You know, sacrifice myself for others. You know, and that can appear like good Christian behaviour, always putting others first. Or it can appear like codependence if you've been around addiction or dysfunction. And it can appear like, actually, what I realised was it's a very deep program, which is just always to just it's almost like self-harm, to put others first to such a degree that it's actually self-neglect and self-harm. So, so this one's for me, and if it blesses anybody else or helps anybody else, that's great. But I'm one of the reasons I avoid vlogging when I'm not on top form is because I think, oh well, it's, you know, it's not good enough to make a difference, and that's all part of that insidious programming where, you know, other people always come first. I mean, I'm not recommending narcissism because it's good to put other people first, and I think it's horrendous when people have children and they don't ever get that paradigm of the kids come first. But I take it to extremes. I'm always sacrificing my own life, health, fun, joy, recreation, holidays, everything, you know, because I'm too busy. You know, busy wrestling or taking care of my parents or my children or the cause or survivors, or just it really clarified for me that this is a racket and it's kept me single. I mean, I was married for 9 years, 9.5 years. I've been divorced. Well, I left my. I didn't leave. I engineered for him to leave because he said he would kill me and himself if I left with the boys. But my I my marriage broke up in 2001. I had a couple of self-destructive affairs since then, and I've been, for the most part, celibate since. And that's fine, and I even like it to some extent because relationships can take a lot of work, especially if you're very damaged in the area of trust, and if you're a trauma-based mind control survivor, it's pretty high maintenance from both sides. But just this, I realised that I was on the way to fully sacrificing myself on the altar of everybody else's life is more important, and fading away. So I've been had a setback really. I came out of my second surgery in November, had healed of the cancer, no hysterectomy, no reopening of catastrophic surgery that had been done in January. And I just felt like I could conquer the world. I felt like I got the distinction that I don't just want to endure life or resist death. I actually want to live and embrace living, and that was a total foreign concept to me, because for most of my life it's just been soldiering on like a good like a good stoic, and lots of adventure and laughter, but a kind of a denial about actually the stuff that really was shit. Really shit. Um, Stoicism taken to a ridiculous. Stoicism taken to the level of denial. So, in that month of revelation, as my body got rid of all the massive amount of anaesthetic, including epidural and morphine and oxynorm, I had to just say stop, stop, stop. I take too much. I was like melting down with the amount of dots joined for me that I'd missed. Like how I just couldn't believe how I hadn't joined them before. But anyway, I'll make another video about that. I wrote a short story about it. I have on my Facebook page, my most active forum, Angela Power Disney. It was Disney, but Facebook said, "Can you spell your name the way it is on your documents?" So but I have notes on my Facebook page, and one of them is called "The Guard Who Ruled Old Castle in the Barony of Four." So I wrote about that dot joining, and it's probably worth making a vlog about, because it was just ridiculous that I didn't link all what I thought was just random traumas coming very hot on the heels of each other for about 5 years. So in an attempt to not take a decade to join some dots about that kind of thing, I'm going to address just right now in the present the possibility of targeted individual activity, or it's got different names. I'm new to all the names. I'm not very long fully awake. But covert harassment and possible, even electronic harassment. So I'm just going to go through what's happened since November, and part of me has rational explanations for all of it, and part of me is like, oh, don't be a drama queen, and don't be a conspiracy theorist, and don't be paranoid, and it's just this and it's just that. But I realised that too. I can hear those voices growing up about invalidating intuition, invalidating inner knowing. It's like, no, of course not, of course not. So every time you have an intuition, or you have you start to deduce or join dots, it's squashed. So again, it's deprogramming to even. I don't want to be intellectual in this, like, because that's a fucking program. They deliberately, like, trauma-based, traumatizing children, particularly before 7 and before 12, causes the brain pathways to go deeper, and you access more of the conscious mind than normal, which normal is 10%. So you come across super intelligent and everything, and then they privately educated me as a perk to my parents for putting their children in these research trials. But it's a default for me to come up to intellectualize everything, and sometimes it's a curse because it covers up the actual agonies and the actual torture and brutality and the unfairness. Like, I don't like to be a whinge bag, but some stuff's shit and it's not okay. And if it's deliberate and orchestrated, I'm not having it. And if it's spiritual, I'm not having it. But even ascribing some stuff as spiritual, which, I always look for the spiritual aspect of stuff, like, if it's a dark time of, cycle of spiritual oppression around Halloween, that stuff's very obvious. Um, or spiritual oppression if I've been taking ground from the enemy by maybe helping others or waking up or getting brave, then there's a backlash, and I've always called it just spiritual. But I'm actually having to widen my thoughts and think, well, maybe this is not a little bit like when everything that had happened to me from, say, 2001, for about 5 years, I thought it was all random and unconnected, and it wasn't. And similarly, since November, so I came out of a second major surgery, amazing healing, no pain. I took one time. I was supposed to be in hospital and have open surgery and full hysterectomy and everything, lymph nodes and everything, and there was tumours and all that. So I've blogged about that. And then I recovered and started, I was in great shape. I'm going to share a video at some point of what I looked like in the January of last year with the catastrophic surgery, which I believe was possibly not accidental either. And I look like unrecognisable. So the good stuff was I went back to ballet at 58. 40 years later, I quit ballet at 18. I was just in great shape. But there's just been an incredible amount of trauma. My son was having issues. Stuff came up that I'd missed in his childhood, and then my daughter disclosed some stuff that I'd also missed, and me, anti-child abuse activist, and so educated in the field, and like licensed childcare owner in California, and highly trained, and blah blah blah, foster caring, everything, and I'd missed stuff with my kids. Well, of course that's going to re-traumatize me. And then see, I can't even remember them sequentially, because the nature of dissociation is every time something bad happens, I file it away, and keep staggering on through. It's all right. We can find a solution. I'm such a jolly trooper that it takes, and fairly, like, the reason I'm blogging about it and the reason I'm not caring, I'm doing this for me primarily, is because I'm almost grounded with. It's not just been trauma like my sister dying on a sacrifice day in very suspicious circumstances after, getting her wake up and realizing some fairly major stuff, and being willing to have a DNA test, which would have, if she shared that with my father, that she and Mum were going to have a DNA test, which possibly would have exposed one of the experiments, or whatever, for whatever if she shared that, that would definitely have been a good, you know, an adequate motive for shutting her up. But first of all, my son wrote my car off in an accident where he should have really, it's a miracle he walked out of it, and he was very, very shaken up from that. So he wrote my car off, and then a few days later, my sister was found dead, and then a few days later, when we buried her, foul play came up as a very strong possibility, and then um, when I got the courage to report that to the police as a possibility that needed investigating, and to also report my historical abuse, both at the hands of my father and uh, what I think was a military paedophile ring in the British Air Force. And so obviously when my family knew that it was the trauma of the same thing again, cut me off, the enemy, instead of like, oh my goodness, you know, let's tell the truth about this, and no, it was like, cut the enemy off, and the enemy's the whistleblower, not the abuser. So it was all the trauma of that rejection again, even from my mother, who had begged me to rescue her from my father because she was in fear of her life. Even her ran back to the enemy camp, you know, ran back to batten down the hatches with the father, the husband that she'd been supported by professionals in getting away from, because anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. But that was traumatic. The rejection, especially by my mother, that was very brutalizing, because I always think I've got some trifle here, so I'm in bed a lot, and I was very immobile, which I was blaming as to why my lower back pains come back so severe. And I was neglecting eating, because when there's too much trauma coming at me, I think it's the child thing, you stay still, I go paralysed, and if it's really severe, I go mute. And I'm much healed, you know. I don't traumatize as badly as that anymore, thank God. But I do this thing of stopping eating and getting a bit agoraphobic, and, you know, when in doubt, go invisible, go underground, you know. When in fear, I suppose it is, or when in trauma. So and lower back. So I've taken myself in hand, and I've been walking, and I did some yoga, Christian yoga, stretching, whatever. I did some yoga. I've been having physical therapy every week. Eating a bit better, taking supplements. But actually, the back is the seat of anger. And when it's like just crippled, like really like a vice grip at the base of my spine. Even yesterday, I had superb physical therapy. Today, my back's all seized up again. Even though I've been for a walk and I've done stretching and whatever, yoga, I've eaten well. So there are two other possibilities. One, I don't even want to get my head round these, but one is implants, you know, which facilitate electronic manipulation and torture. Sounds so dramatic, but then so has been my life, and you know, I'm not going to apologise for that. It's not my place. It's not. So it could be implants, or it could be just bottled up anger, and that my back's telling me you need to get some of this out, you need to do some of the appropriate stuff that you're avoiding by being nice. So, yeah, it could be anger, stored up anger, or it could be just I've had a lot of trauma and adrenaline floods that haven't been dispersed healthily. Too much adrenaline. Um, the adrenal glands, the glutes in the either side of the lower spine get very jammed up I don't know when I get angry or when I get traumatized. So my plans to go to start looking to go back to work when my son goes back to, when my son starts college in my youngest son starts university or college in September, and I want to start working again. So I was thinking, where will I work? I'll go to England, and then I thought, no, I'll go to Lanzarote, and that all fast forwarded a bit early. So I thought that's great. My son's finished his leaving cert. We'll go for the summer. I'll find where I'm going to live in October and where, see what the work situation's like for journalism and for, maybe do some, I don't know, Lanzarote would be good because I speak French and German and Spanish. So I could pick up work in anything, real estate or hostessing in a nice restaurant, anything. Just part-time work for social and then online, because online work, there's no money in it, for God's sake. I suppose what I need to do to make money is publish. Publish. I've written a book. I've got at least another one ready to go. And I always self-sabotage by not publishing. I like one book took me 5 years, and absolutely ready to go, and I don't do the final bit of finding a publisher or self-publishing or marketing. It's just that's another. I'm sure that's another program just to keep us ineffective, and that's partly why it's so advantageous to have us pouring out our lives for other people. No matter how worthy the cause is. But even with my own children, there's a book called Women Who Love Too Much, and I think there should be a similar one for parents that love too much. That absolutely put their, absolutely do sacrifice their lives for the children. The children won't thank you for it. They didn't ask for that. It's like the Jewish mama syndrome, isn't it? After all I sacrificed for you. Well, no, I don't want them to feel guilty, and I don't want them. I want them to flee the nest and be. My job's done if they know how to live and flourish as adults independently. So pouring my life out, loving them too much is just a burden for them and a con for me, because sometimes our kids would like us to be happy and fulfilled ourselves as well. Not that fulfilled with trifle though. Anyway, so I rent my house out in all of the flurry, and then I don't get enough help to pack up 13 years. I've never lived anywhere for 13 years before. Up until then, 5 years twice was the longest I'd stayed still in 40 something years. So 13 years of a home. Anyway, so that was quite, moving on those scales: death, divorce, bereavement, divorce, moving, new job, blah blah blah. There's a level of stresses, and moving is very high up. So I'd rented my house out, and a friend had said, there's 2 rooms in my house. Jamie can have a base for when he comes home from college, and you can store your stuff there. And that was all arranged. Off we were going to Lanzarote, and I get robbed on the way to the airport. Didn't even make it out of Oldcastle. I get robbed, and it's my technology bag, which had my laptop, my very expensive camcorder, all my tech stuff for doing any interviews, doing any journalism. That's taken. That was all in a proper tech bag, and my wallet, with nearly €1,000 and my driving license and cards and stuff, and nothing else. Like no handbag, no. And I'm just thinking, oh well, random. you know, and the wallet was taken, and yet not the handbag, and yet not my housemate's laptop, not my housemate's iPad. So um, we didn't go to Lanzarote, and then we're still here 4 weeks later, and my health's gone down a bit, so I've got a bit depressed. I even had suicidal ideation, which I know is external. It's not me. I never would commit suicide, and I haven't had. I was on a high. I was absolutely happy, like really feeling joie de vivre since I got this, turnaround in my health, and this revelation that I don't need to, that I don't care about other people's. Of course, we all like to be flattered, but I don't care about whether people approve or applaud, or I don't get paid for approval and applause. So I do this because I want to, and it's helpful to me, and it's part of who I am. But actually, I really love to sing and dance and public speaking and acting, I suppose. But there's balance in everything. So, and then I reported in Kells, and that's been very lackadaisical. The actual robbery, no, that's been handled brilliantly. But reporting suspected foul play in the death of my sister, no, very lackadaisical. And then I reported the historical and the military abuse in London to the Metropolitan Police, who curiously handed it over to Wiltshire Police randomly, because that was the last place that I was abused as a child. Well, I was 15. That was the last major incident that I disclosed in my report to the Met. So for some bizarre reason, Rudloe Manor's near there as well. That was my dad's last military posting. So anyway, for some bizarre reason, the Metropolitan Police passed me on to Wiltshire. But because of losing all my stuff and moving and being in shock, and my sister dying and the family rejecting me all over again and invalidating, and for whatever reason, I haven't even been able to make the statement. I mean, the copper in Wiltshire seems to be very helpful and amenable, and I just haven't had the money to go to Wiltshire. I was kind of waiting until I can sort out this, whether anything I lost is covered by insurance. I don't know. I just felt grounded. And then I was grounded, because I was even going to go and be a judge at a conference in Wiltshire, and expenses paid. And then I realised I can't hire a car because I haven't replaced my driving licence yet. So it's all that stuff. So I'm just wondering, I'll make a follow-up about the 5-year series of apparently random coincidences from 2001 that I realised were not random and were not coincidences, and were all connected. So I'm just wondering, because I was whistleblowing and because I was advocating on some very high-profile cases, and because I reported my father and my mother too, really, for neglect and failure to protect, and aiding and abetting to some extent. I don't hold her as responsible as I do my dad, but certainly implicated. And then all the shenanigans that kick in, the same stuff. I think this is where a lot of the anger, the back pain possibly is. I don't know whether it's real. I don't know if it's spiritual, external targeting, or internal stress and anger and understandable trauma. I always tend, same way children do, if a child's parents get divorced, or if a child is being abused, as children we internalize everything. So we as children do. You can read this in any child psychology books. Children blame themselves, and I still have that tendency. It's like, oh, if I got robbed, well, that's my fault, and if the family rejected me, well, maybe, that little part of your mind, maybe they're right, um, and if my younger sister is once again being outrageous, taking over like she's the queen of everything, and done a lousy job being the queen of everything, especially with my parents and our family home and land and everything. And I mean, God forgive them, my sisters, when they felt threatened property-wise, when Dad was needing somebody to live in with him when I was his carer, rather than risk having me move into one of their, you know, well, they were in their properties because they'd grabbed them, but rather than risk having their booty threatened, they wrestled the care of my father off me. And now, for what? He's in a nursing home now, only for a week's respite. But the truth is, that's where he's headed. And even though I don't know why I even care, I don't know if it's trauma bonding or Christian honouring of my father, because he should be in jail, really. But at the same time, I feel sad that they, that I had him, that he was seeing a psychiatrist, and they were looking at diagnoses, and he was going to get some help, and no, that was all pushed to one side by the family, and he's possibly gone on to murder my sister. So it makes me sad. It makes me sad, and even though my sister, part of her revelations was to realise that not only was Dad a nasty psychopath and stealing from her and torturing her and tormenting her, but also that my younger sister, who has the family empire, was didn't really care about her and was financially abusive. And she realised that. She and and because my dad kept stealing from her, and because I think he was drugging her too, and she was just not even able to get out of the house, she begged me to take care of her finances. And I kept saying, look, I'll teach you to do it, and I'll send Josh up, we'll get you the internet, I'll teach you, I'll give you ABC, it's so easy to do. But no, she gave me all her passwords and all her financial details, and had some moments with other siblings saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But the truth is, she had me managing her finances for the last few months of her life. And as per normal, it's another mess. They've what do you call it, exiled myself and the other family members that do believe it's worthy of investigation, my sister's death, and they've wrestled control of her finances back, unlawfully. The law says that because my sister died intestate and she has no children, never married, so then my father and mother, who are her abusers and neglectors too, are in charge of her estate. And of course, the couple of nefarious siblings, mostly the one, just has them sign here, sign here, sign here. And she's the one that's like, Dad's off, her version of care, Dad's off in a nursing home for respite, leading to, and already, spreading to incorporate where he was living into the empire. And the two sisters that Fiona was most upset with, Kathy and Anne-Marie, for being financially abusive and for being bullying and authoritarian, unloving, whatever, are now running her, taking care of her estate. And I guess, I think I should go and get an injunction so that my father and mother are dismissed as being her next of kin on grounds of being investigated, or and then it all takes so much effort. So I just wanted to share, without necessarily having the answers, that I've had chronic fatigue, I've had excruciating lower back pain again, which I thought was all sorted when I had, you know, my corrective surgery. You know, I don't know why. I don't have really a physical explanation as to why there's this brutal lower back pain again. Chronic fatigue and brutal lower back pain. And obviously, um, when you start to get ill health as well, and you've had trauma, and there's not much family support, you know, there's the thing of not wanting to go out and not wanting to, you know, just wanting to kind of isolate. So thank God for the internet. And it's been tough. I've got some good friends. Thank God for good friends as well. So that's it. Nothing wild and wonderful. Just, you know, nothing even too intellectual. Just sharing about the possibility of being a targeted individual for having reported both in England and Ireland about possible murder, drugging, murder, and more disturbing. Well, I've just, everybody knows I've whistleblown about a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. So thorn in the side thing, but also about military paedophile ring and MK Ultra in the UK. I mean, that's a blanket term, and yeah, yeah, and reported to Lowell Goddard. You know, like, I mean, I don't know if they're going to include. I hope they are, but you know, I put myself down as somebody that wants to be included in that inquiry. So, and then there's been just like ill health and low energy and trauma after trauma and random burglary and lots of technical stuff as well. So not only does fortunately the laptop was stolen, it's not my work one because I have a work PC. But my camcorder's gone, and that had an original. I was going to put an original. I was going to submit the only original I had of my Chasing Rainbows DVD on Vimeo, and that was stolen. That pissed me off because I think that's the only original in existence. So yeah, random burglaries, random making plans to travel and work and do interviews and getting waylaid, and chronic fatigue and lower back pain, and yeah, bye. I think that says bye. God bless.